Mental Health Monday
on Radio City Talk
with Mick Coyle.
Tackling the stigma.
Radio City Talk.
It's Radio City Talk. My name is Mick Coyle. We're back on Mental Health Monday. We talk about mental health on the radio, and we've got the author of a new book which you can buy now, and it's a fascinating insight into a life which you may know a little bit about, but of course there'll be many different aspects of that life which will be brand new to you. It's by somebody called George Wilson. You may know him under a different name, and you will certainly know his face. The book is called From Grange Hill to Bipolar and Back. George Wilson joins us on the show. George, great to see you. Thank you for your time.
Oh, no problem at all. No problem at all.
Now, this is really interesting because I wouldn't instantly go, you were Ziggy from Grange Hill, because you've probably heard it 1,000,001 times and people probably stop you in the street and probably go, hey, aren't you the person from Grange Hill? But you very much put Grange Hill at the centre. You put it in the title of your book.
Yeah, because there's a lot about Grange Hill, and it was a very big part of my life. Sort of that's where the book starts, because that's where my life sort of got interesting. So I started the audition. So I had to put Grange Hill in because I was there for 4 years filming it, living in London. And a lot of things happened in London that maybe down the line affected me in some ways. But by no means do I blame Grange Hill for having bipolar, you know.
I was going to ask you, so we'll talk about bipolar. Bipolar is also in the title as well, From Grange Hill to Bipolar and Back. I was talking last week on the programme about eating disorders, and there's so many sort of misunderstandings around anorexia, binge eating, bulimia and things like that. And I think bipolar, in many ways, is misunderstood as well. People throw it out in conversation. She's bipolar, or they throw away things because there's a misunderstanding about why people act in the way that they do. So I'll be keen to explore, George, over the course of this conversation, how in reality sort of bipolar affects your day-to-day life and the way you've managed to live with that over the years. Let's go back, though, to being 15 years of age, getting an opportunity of a lifetime to be part of Grange Hill, with it the opportunity to move to London. Mm-hmm. Was that a parental decision at 15 to say, well, we can make that happen? Because that was a big commitment, right?
Yeah, no, they never went with me, my mum and dad. It was just me. I got the part in Manchester, went for auditions, got the part, and only I had to move to London. They stayed here. I stayed with a family in London where I was looked after for the 4 years. A guy and his wife, a lovely couple, and their daughter. So that's how that happened. There wasn't like a big family shake-up, you know.
And in terms of that, you became, I mean, everybody watched Grange Hill, right? So presumably everybody knew you, but you were still a young guy, right? And you were obviously playing a young guy on screen as well. That experience must have been such an interesting one.
Well, you see, the thing is, back in 85, when it was on, there was only 4 channels. You only had 1, 2, 3 and Channel 4. So you didn't have, like now, you got your Netflix and your Amazons and your Skys. You had none of that then. So all the kids, literally, at 5:10, used to home in on Grange Hill. So everyone kind of knew me that was my age, maybe a little bit, certainly younger, and a bit older as well. So you got a lot of, obviously a lot of recognition, and I had to deal with that. And 99% of the time, it was nice. You know, you meet nice people and friendly people, and there was no problems really, except the odd one. I won't lie, but you know, you got to deal with that. But so it was a very pleasant experience doing the show, and a good laugh, and with all the lads in the show. Certainly got on with all of them and the girls. So it was 4 years I look back on very, very, very fondly.
Within that 4-year period, did you ever think, well, I'm young, I'm doing this now, this will lead on to other things, I'll get other opportunities through that? Or were you thinking, well, it's touch and go, I'm doing this now, but who knows what the future might bring?
Well, you know, I'd done the 4 years, and I could have done a 5th year, which would have been a 6th form for me, because I didn't go until the 2nd year. But I thought, in my own mind at the time, at 18, that I would walk into Hollywood. I thought, I'll leave here, Hollywood will be knocking on the door. And I obviously was disillusioned because it didn't happen, and I had to try and then find my way in life and a career. And it took a long, long time to get back on television, which was not until realistically 1996-7 in Brookside. But that gap before that, couple of years after were the hardest. After Grange Hill, I had to work in normal jobs, which at the time I couldn't get used to. years on, I got used to doing 9 to 5s, but I couldn't then because I was still Ziggy to everyone. It was like, what's he doing here? And people taking the mickey who I didn't know, shouting things behind my back. And at the time, it played on my mind a bit, you know. It wasn't easy trying to find work after it.
But it's strange as well that people would have seen you on as a kid on TV and then presumed you made millions or that you'd never need to work again. I mean, the realities are very different as well. So yeah, that 4-year period up to 1989, I understand Hillsborough is a key part of the book and the story as well. And actually we found on this radio station that it's never really far from the conversation, particularly given things that have gone on in recent weeks as well. The 15th of April, 1989.
Yeah. Well, that season, we went to all the away games and the home games for the FA Cup, and obviously that one came around. It was a big game. We had to go, and we all split up around the ground, but it was basically me and my mate Fozzie. Luckily, the year before, we played them, Forest, in the same leg at Hillsborough, and he was in the Leppins Lane. So when it came about, where do we want to go for this tie? I suggested the Leppins Lane, you know, because that's where the atmosphere was, and that's where we'd gone every game in the standing area with the atmosphere. But he said, no, I don't want to go this time because the year before I got crushed. So, you know, by the grace of God, he could have realistically saved my life. I listened to him, and we went in the West Stand instead. But I still seen what happened that day with my own eyes, and obviously over time, I started having nightmares about it and thinking about it, and we couldn't talk about it at the time. None of my pals, you know, that night when we got back, we went to a club called Coconut Grove. We just sat together, and nobody spoke all night, not about what we'd seen or been through. We just sat there in disbelief. It was just an awful evening. And then obviously the next day, everyone got hit with it when the realisation of what really happened. And I never spoke because I thought, well, I wasn't in the crush. I wasn't in the Leppins Lane. What right have I got to ever talk about it? I thought it'd be an insult to the families if I was to say, listen, I'm having nightmares about all this. So I kept quiet for a good long time.
It's always so fascinating to hear that, you know, and I think it's how we sort of draw narratives around certain scenarios and try and make sense of something, that there was maybe a sense that in the first instance, the people who came away with their lives were classed as, you know, well, they were the lucky ones. But I think as the years have gone on, I think the description of those has changed to survivors. They survived. You know, it could have been them. They were lucky. It wasn't them. But they still witnessed those terrible events and carry those events with them.
Yeah.
You know,
definitely.
All this time
I know a lot
on.
of people. There's a lot of people who won't forget that, what they've seen, you know. And luckily there's people out there now that have recognised this. There's a group run by a guy called Ian Hulme, who runs the HSSA, which is the Hillsborough Survivors Support Association. And he specifically, he deals with whether you were in the Leppins Lane or you were anywhere in that ground, you can go and you can talk about it and get it off your chest, whatever, you know. And I know there has been other groups before. I was a member of the HGA, the Hillsborough Justice Association, and they were really helpful to me as well. They were the first people that helped me, really, because, as I say, I never spoke about it for a long, long time. And then my agent at the time, I had Kathy Toner, rang me and said, look, they're doing a play about Hillsborough, about the disaster, to raise awareness. And at first I said, no, I really can't go there. I said, I don't want to bring all that back. But I met this guy, Terry Burkett, and he was the chairman of the Hillsborough Justice Group. And he came to meet me and all the other guys in the cast, and I told him, listen, Terry, I don't think I could handle it. But he was such a lovely guy, and what he told me, and reassured me that he would help me through this, because he lost his son, Peter, and his wife, Anne, was there with him as well. She was very, very helpful, and all that group. And I done this play, and it did let me deal with it in a way. I got a lot bottled up things out, and that's what helped me.
I don't think we should ever underestimate the weight that a lot of people carry from Hillsborough for many different reasons, not least because of the way the justice system, you know, played out over the years, and the perceptions about Scousers, the perceptions about people from the city, that played out through national media, and people were left to find their own way to deal with it as well. You know, that was an opportunity which you took as well, but you know,
it was just a farce. All that was just a farce. What the Sun printed, they made us all look bad. You know, not just me. I personally had to deal with people, outside Liverpool, shouting things, saying things. You know, I've had fights over it, and I certainly know other pals who've had to defend themselves and deal with idiots. You know, shouting things. Things get sang at certain grounds. It's just, you know, it's so cruel, especially for the families and people related or anyone that was connected to that day to hear things. It's not a very nice thing.
It's not always simple as one thing happens to you and therefore there's an effect. In the book From Grange Hill to Bipolar, you obviously talk about your experience at Hillsborough. By 1991, there's a time you spend in a psychiatric hospital. Is it 6 months time? 6 months worth. Of time that you're in there as well.
I had a good 6 months in a cuckoo's nest, as I always call them. It was just a build up of things. I mean, there was a lot of things. I lost my nan. There was the Hillsborough disaster that was playing on my mind. I got arrested. You know, I was drunk and no excuse, but I was drunk and I had a joint in a nightclub with duty police, so I got arrested. So that wasn't too a joyful memory. So that was like embarrassing as well, and a shame came with it for the family. My nan and granddads were alive then. It really wasn't a good time that. And the unemployment hit me then. So there was just a series of lows, and I became reclusive, agoraphobic. I couldn't go out. I couldn't even bring the milk in. I was that agoraphobic. And I just started then having kind of delusions. There was things, I was imagining things that weren't happening. I wasn't seeing things. I'm not like schizophrenia where you can see or hear voices. It's not like that, bipolar. I was just getting sort of imagining things that weren't happening, weren't real. I was imagining my dad. He was like the devil almost, instead of my dad. And you know, again, Hillsborough came back. It was one of the first ones. I was imagining I was in that Leppins Lane, and because I'd seen images on papers of people being crushed, I was putting my face into these contortion, you know, as if I was in the crush. So that was obviously so frightening.
Was this happening in just sort of during sort of daylight hours, or this was when you were lying in bed at night?
No, this is in the day. This was like happening every day, and I thought I had AIDS because AIDS was a big epidemic at that time in '91. It was a big thing over the news. I really was convinced I had AIDS, so I was crying and crying over and over. My mum's trying to tell me, "Look, you haven't got it, you know." And I'm going, "No, I have." I was just so convinced, but obviously I didn't. So I was imagining all these things, and then the breaking point was I lived in my loft, and I just smashed the loft up, basically. The most beautiful thing I had in that loft was a picture of 2 dolphins jumping in the sea with the sun on them, and I threw that out the window. And because it always represented beauty and calmness to me, that picture. I was always staring at it before I went to sleep. It was the first thing I threw out the window. And that was the 2 things that were going to be taken away from me, my beauty and calmness, because I went down to 7 stone. And I looked a mess. And the calmness, you know, was gone. And
you're still, by this point, a young guy, aren't you? And presumably, even though you've gone through all those experiences, the tabloids would still have had you the tearaway kid from Grange Hill who'd been caught out, you know, in a nightclub, and you were dealing with that, which is... You know, a lot of people would say, well, that's just what young people do.
Yeah.
But you were dealing with it at a different level. Plus, you had all this other stuff going on in your life, which some people would have known about, but I guess the general public wouldn't have necessarily known about at all.
Which this when I was 21, you mean?
Yeah.
Fortunately, I mean, it didn't make any papers. No, I mean, I got took to hospital and sectioned. I'd say it lasted 6 months. But it didn't break any papers, as far as I know. Or if it did, no one ever told me. My friends and family kept it amongst our own. You know, we didn't tell people they didn't need know. So it didn't ever break out. And I didn't want to, when I come out, tell. Again, it's like the big thing. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I think I told one person when I got out, an ex-school colleague. I seen him, I bumped into him in town, and he said, how are you? I'm not long got out of hospital. I didn't look well at all. And I told him I've just been in hospital for 6 months because I thought it was a breakdown. That's what we all thought. It was either two things, one, manic depressive, or two, it was just a breakdown and it'll be a one-off and it'll never happen again. That's what we hoped it was, the latter, but it wasn't. Turned out it wasn't. It was manic depressive, which is bipolar. That's what they call it now. It's a better word, I suppose. Anyway, I told this school guy, and he just looked at me like I was like Anthony Perkins in Psycho. You know, he was took aback. And from that moment on, I thought, I'm not going to tell anyone because, you know, I'm not going to get any sympathy. I'm not going to get any, oh, you're all right. I'm just going to get people weary of me. And that's how in a way, I was kind of ashamed to talk about it.
Were you, in terms of your own personal sort of treatment and your own sort of way of life, were you well equipped after that period in the hospital to come away knowing what the diagnosis was and how you might be able to try and live with that, control that, be yourself, but with the diagnosis in your life? Were you equipped at that early stage?
Well, they never told me anything. I just got out and just thought it was a breakdown. They spoke to my mum and said it could have been manic. It could be manic depression, could be bipolar. But because the gap was so long, 7 years, we just thought it was a breakdown. Because I got, you know, it took me a year or so, but I got fit again. I got back to like 12, 13 stone. And, you know, I lived in Spain with my pal, worked and lived in Spain. I love that. That got me proper back to full fitness. I was in my prime then at 23, say. And then Brookside come along, and that was 4 or 5 months filming. I love doing Brookside. A great character I had to play Little Jimmy. And then I wrote a play. I wrote, directed, and produced a play, about 2 Welsh boxers who died on the Titanic with my pal Steve, who lived with me in Spain. So I was and I was doing a load of plays as well before that on the road. So I was kept so busy, and I didn't have time to think. I didn't think about whatever happened in 91. That was far from my mind. It's only when it happened again, as I say, in 99, that we all realised that it wasn't a one-off, you know.
So in your mind at that point on TV, sort of character, very interesting character. People remember Little Jimmy Corkill and his plot line as well. Presumably, you know, you got your teeth into that, you know, and really sort of enjoyed it as well. By the time the summer of 1999 comes around, does it come to you as a big shock, as I guess it came to people around you, that another incident flares up?
Yeah, well, sadly, the people around me didn't know what I'd been through in 91 because I'd never told anybody. So I was with my partner, and she was only 22, Mel, and she, you know, she dealt with it as best as any woman could who didn't know anything about that illness. I'm on a mountain and I've gone ballistic. I mean, it's probably the scariest night, just as scary as the first night of my life. Imagining so many things that you wouldn't believe. And the police came. And you've got the strength of, like, you could have put Mike Tyson in that room with me. I wouldn't have been frightened of him. I wouldn't have been frightened of anyone. You just got that. You're like an animal. The police, it took about 6 or 7 to actually physically get me down, because a few of them I took out as soon as they come in. And they had to handcuff me my legs, my hands, and put me into the back of the van. That was and then took to hospital. And I was pumped with so much Valium. They said no one's ever took that much Valium. They don't know. They've had to pump 2 doses into my arm to like Jaws when they're pumping the barrels into them. They had to 3 or 4 barrels. It took. I was like that with Valium to get me to stay down.
And had that incident come from anywhere? Was there something that happened over that day? Had you felt 3 days before, a week before? That...
It built up over months of, as I say, writing this play, producing this play. You know, getting this play off the ground, which took 6 months, the cast. I was drinking after it. I was having panic attacks at first. I was waking up halfway down the stairs thinking, where am I? Because I was trying to sleep, and I was just like, I suddenly jump bottom of the stairs. So these panic attacks were coming in, which were new. I'd never had these before. Then sleep totally came. I couldn't sleep at all. 3 or 4 nights without sleep, which for any man or woman is torture. You know, certain people torture people by not making them sleep to get information out of them. That's how bad it is, and that's what I went through. 3 or 4 nights with no sleep, and that's when I erupted.
And you found yourself, you weren't close to home, were you? At the point either?
South Wales, yeah. It was a long way away, and my friend Steve, he come on the mountain. Mel rang Steve, and he came, and they slept outside the hospital that night. So they wouldn't leave me, and he got in touch with my parents, and my mum came up straight away, followed by my dad. And you know, they were all, as always. I'm very lucky. I have a really good support network of people, family, and they always stay by me. You know, they never drift away.
At what point, given the sort of the extreme circumstances of that moment, did somebody sit down, look through notes, paperwork that said, actually, this has a reflection or a mirror of something which happened less than 10 years ago? Was that straight away, or did that take some time? Did somebody have to flag this up and go, well, actually, this isn't the first time we've had an incident like this?
Kept thinking it was breakdowns. No one ever diagnosed me with bipolar until it was either the 4th time I went in. Certainly wasn't the 3rd, because I went on lithium on the 4th time, and that lithium balanced me. You know, it kind of, bipolar is that you go too high or you go too low, and the lithium kept me on at a level where it wasn't going too high or too low, so it was fine. That was the 4th time, but the mistake I made was that a doctor at some point before that had said to me, after 2 years, you can come off it. So I did come off it, but it was fatal. I went away with my pals and my dad's pals on a stag weekend. It was just like a jolly boys outing in Spain, and just laughter from the off. And I was drinking in the sun, and I come back, and within a week, I was, without being on the lithium, because I thought I was invincible without being on this lithium, you see, anymore. And I was back in again. So I've learned from my mistakes, basically. You know, I don't drink no more. That's one thing. One of the things I've given up. I've learned that in order to have a better way of life, I've had to sacrifice a lot of things and have new interests.
In the book blurb, it says, it's one of the most frightening things in the world, but it's not the end of the world. With the diagnosis, did that empower you a little bit to kind of go, well, I know what it is now, and you can read about it, you can find people who've got shared experiences. There's a definition to this. It's not just breakdowns. It's not just an oddity of my own mind. This is sort of diagnosable condition.
Do you know, I know you say that, and a lot of people probably do. Maybe I'm the only man that doesn't, but I don't read up about it and books about it and Google it, because I've learned from my own 5 experiences now in hospital enough, and I've picked doctors' brains in hospitals, and I've watched other patients where they've gone wrong, and I don't need to read something that could make me feel worse or make me think about side effects that may never happen. I just don't want to read about it. I'd sooner just learn. I've taught myself, as simple as that.
In terms of that balance of bipolar, do you spot signs when there might be moments where you can recognise there might be a flare-up on the way? Have you kind of found ways of dealing with that, of not controlling it as such, but finding a control over it?
My girl finds the signs before me. She knows when I'm going a little bit, because I mean, it's been 6 years. I've kept out of hospital, touch wood, for 6 years now. But I kind of, if I'm not sleeping, that's a big one. The sleep. If I lose a night or two sleep, dangerous. Doctors get sleeping pills. I'll make sure I catch up on my sleep. Stress can bring it on. If I'm stressing work, can bring it on. I have had a few stressful jobs over the years. People in work can stress you. So I can't work neither like 5 days a week, 9 to 5, or to work nights where my sleep pattern would be disrupted. I have to be very careful with work and how much I work. So they're 2 big signs: getting too stressed, not sleeping too good. Getting too excited is another one. I mean, it's horrible to say this, but I went to see Echo and the Bunnymen a couple of years ago, a band I've loved all my life. And after it, I was on such a high, not since Pink Floyd. I seen Pink Floyd in 1988, and that was, I always said, was the best concert I ever seen. But this Echo and the Bunnymen was just fantastic. And I was like, come home and was putting Echo and the Bunnymen CDs on, bouncing around the house. And she had Mel, my girl, she has to calm me down. She's like, George, you can't get, slow down. She sees it. So I've got to be careful of going too high. Now, I sometimes hate it for this because I like being like that,
With that in mind, do you still sort of allow yourself those moments of happiness, those moments of enjoyment in life? Are you able to sort of have those without having to second guess yourself?
When she goes out, yeah. As soon as she's out, the old Alexa's blasting all kinds. But no, I recognise them not as quick as her, but I'll kind of say to her sometimes, or my son Kirk, yeah, Kirk's just as good. He knows the signs now, because he says to his mum, I think my dad's, he's dancing to rave music in the living room, whatever it could be, or I might be a little bit snappy. I can snap as well. I can be, I can snap. I don't mean snap as in hit him or hit anybody. I mean snap as in me, lose my temper easier or quicker than I would, at all. Normally I might laugh at something or just ignore it, but I might snap, and that's a sign, snappiness.
What's it been like writing the book?
At first, I was laughing to myself writing it. I wrote it on my phone as well. The publisher reckons I'm one of the first people to ever write a book on his phone. I just found an app.
That should be on the front cover.
I know. I just found an app that was for writers, and I put it into chapters, and it was just easy for me at night. I wrote it like an hour before I slept every night, and it gradually started about April, as I found I had time on my hands this year for the first time in a long time. And the reason I wrote it, I must say, on Facebook, I kept putting up the odd blog for the first time in my life over the last, say, 3 years about bipolar, about my bipolar, and how it's, I've sometimes been affected, not too deep, but little things here and there on mental health days. I started to find I was getting personal messages and messages under the blog from people saying that it had helped them, or my brother's got the same illness, or my mother, or whatever. And they were thanking me for doing this. And that, over time, put it in my head that I could maybe help other people here. Even if it's just one person might read my book and get one little bit of info where I've gone wrong, or what I've done that I shouldn't have done, and learn from me, then, great.
It's available now. You can buy it on Amazon, From Grange Hill to Bipolar and Back, by the author, George Wilson, and a great little photo of you. You wearing cricketing whites?
Yeah.
On that?
Yeah.
Were you in the Grange Hill cricket team?
No, it was one episode.
What was it?
We just played cricket for one episode against the teachers. But he caught me off guard. I'd never seen that picture till about a month or two ago. One of the cast members, Ricky, he took it when I didn't even know he took it. And he sent it me.
Brilliant sort of people will have memories of you from that time as well, but there's an untold story there which I think people will find absolutely fascinating, and a journey which maybe people never expected to hear that you'd been on as well. We wish you all the very, very best, George, with the book, but also your ongoing journey as well. Thank you for joining us on the programme today. Really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you very much.
And the book is available now through Amazon, From Grange Hill to Bipolar and Back. The author is George Wilson, and our guest on Mental Health Monday. Don't forget, if you want to find mental health services close to you, you can use the Hub of Hope. That's the hubofhope.co.uk. Type in your postcode, you'll find mental health services close to you.
Mental Health Monday with Mick Coyle.
Radio City Talk.